Thank you so much. Man, it's an honor to be here with all of my friends and conservatives across the country. And I want to thank ALEC, first off, for promoting policies that we all believe in. Limited government, free markets, and federalism. I just came back. Been traveling for a little bit. I just came back from London at the air show. But before that, I was at the RNC. And yeah, saw President Trump get nominated, and all right, let's do it. J.D. Vance. But a couple years ago, it reminded me of a story. A couple years ago at the DNC, Democrat National Convention, the press was walking in, and they see a little boy over there, and he's selling puppies. And he's saying, "Come get your Democrat puppies here. Get your Democrat puppies." And the press is like, "Oh, that's pretty cute." They go on in. Well, 2 weeks later was the Republican National Convention. And the press is scurrying in there, and they hear a little boy over there selling puppies again. And this time he's saying, "Come get your Republican puppies. Get your Republican puppies here." And the press, they get so curious. I wonder if that's the same boy that 2 weeks ago was selling Democrat puppies. And so they go up to him and they're like, "Are you the same boy that was here 2 weeks ago selling Democrat puppies?" He's like, "Yes, sir, I sure am." And they said, "Well, what changed between 2 weeks ago to today you're selling Republican puppies?" He looks at them and he's like, "Well, now the puppies have their eyes open." Just making sure I was in a good audience here with you. So, here's the deal. I truly believe that most Americans, regardless of your political background or where you live in the country, we really all want the same things. And that's the best education for our kids, right? The best opportunity for them. We want the most thriving economy, the best opportunity for us to have wage increase and growth. And we want safe communities. And people want their leaders. They want you to do the right thing. They want me to do the right thing and leave politics at the door. And let's just go lead our states. And I always say it this way. I say, let Washington, D.C. play politics. Let's just go make Oklahoma top 10 in everything that we do. And we're getting it done. And as leaders, we are all here fighting to preserve and restore faith in the American dream and to protect our way of life. And I want you to know the states are the most important part of that, not the federal government. And state legislators, you are in the right position to be able to lead that effort. So, as most of you agree with me in this room, government is not the answer. Thank you. I love how Ronald Reagan said it. Ronald Reagan said this. He said, "Government is not the solution to our problems. Most of the time, government is the problem." A perfect example of this is permitting reform and permits. What does it take to get a permit done? If you think about electricity generated plants, and we're gonna need more generation in the future with EVs and AI and the taxation on our grid and population growth and manufacturing coming back stateside, we're gonna need more generation. It's taking 10 years to get a permit done, regardless of the source. I believe there's a bipartisan effort that we all believe that, and we should be able to make sense federal permitting reform done, something that we're working on as governors. But nothing shows the failure of government intervention better than the COVID pandemic. That was a beatdown for all of us. So let's talk about how it affected education for a second. In the wake of COVID-related school closures, parents began to see the power teachers' unions held over our government schools. Kids were forced to learn at home, and that gave parents a new look into what was being taught in some of our public schools. We were seeing across the country, we were seeing drag queens being promoted in elementary schools. We were seeing books on gender ideology, which is not appropriate for our young people. Many parents were realizing at that time that the system was failing our kids. And it became clear that our school systems were not preparing the kids for the workforce. And after all, that is what we're supposed to be focused on in our education system, is getting that next generation ready for the workforce. Most schools in Oklahoma were open the entire time. But there were a couple bigger school districts. Tulsa in particular was closed for 355 days during COVID. I hammered them every single day. The superintendent, by the way, hated my guts, okay? She finally had to resign, but they were closed for 355 days. But here's the deal, I would have been the biggest hypocrite, and it really bothered me when I saw some other governors that their kids were in school, in person, in a private school the whole time, while they were saying it wasn't safe to go to public schools. And if any of you were governors and you had to talk to the single moms that would call your office and they would say, Governor, what am I supposed to do? My first grader is not learning how to read via Zoom. I have to go to work during the day, and it would break your heart because you knew that some of their other friends were in school. So that motivated us in Oklahoma to pass the best school choice reform in the entire country. We were one of the first states to pass a refundable tax credit, so every single family, regardless of income, has a tax credit to go to any school of their choice. And we've got some Oklahoma legislators in the room. I've got Speaker McCall. We've got people from the House, the Senate. I want to thank you guys for your hard work in helping me get that across the finish line. But here's what I tell people all the time. Listen, the rich people, they already have school choice, okay? They can buy a house in a different neighborhood. They can choose to buy this house to get their kids in this school district. But if anybody had a son or daughter that was getting into the wrong crowd or getting into drugs or was in a school district with low graduation grades or ACT scores, you would do whatever you could to move your son or daughter. And that's what Oklahoma just gave to every single family in our state. We're so proud of it. But Oklahoma also became the first state in the country to approve a religious charter school. And let me just remind everybody that some people get hyped up on this. You don't have to send your kid to the Catholic charter school or the Christian charter school or the Hebrew charter school, but that's a choice. You can go to your local zip code school. This just creates more choice and more options for our parents. But instead of more options, the left has become more concerned with these gender ideology, the DEI, instead of merit, instead of teaching our kids and preparing them for the workforce, that anything is possible through hard work. And now in Oklahoma, we're fighting to protect girls in girls' sports. I was one of the first governors to sign the Save Women in Sports bill. It's probably one of my favorite bills to sign in the state. And the Washington Post interviewed me afterwards, and they were like, Governor, you signed this controversial bill. I'm like, which bill are they talking about? I'm like, the Save Women in Sports bill? No, that wasn't controversial in Oklahoma. Oklahoma knows the difference between boys and girls, and we're going to protect girls' sports in the state of Oklahoma. And I'm telling you, I've had so many athletes and college OU track stars and girls coming up to me saying, Governor, thank you for protecting our scholarships in the state of Oklahoma. But what does more school choice mean for us in Oklahoma and in your states? I believe it injects the free market into our education system. Why is that important? Because at the end of the day, we need to align education with workforce needs. And nothing does that better than the free market. In our state, we have a huge aviation and defense industry. And so we need more workforce in that area. So we set up an aviation school in Norman, Oklahoma, where I grew up. And so now when you're a freshman in high school, if you say, hey, I want to be an aviation mechanic, we don't poo-poo that and say, no, you got to go to a 4-year college and you've got to go get a degree. We say that's awesome because it's A&P mechanic at Tinker Air Force Base at American Airlines, they start at $70,000 a year. Matter of fact, I went home and told my son, I said, you're going to become an aviation mechanic. But ALEC, your organization has been so critical in this piece and moving and talking about education freedom initiatives through state houses all across the country. And I think to date, we have 12 states, if I have my numbers right, that have passed this, and we're working on 16 more by 2025, so we can get this done. This is going to move decision-making power from the government to parents. And after all, we believe God gave kids to parents, not to the government. So we're putting parents in charge. And you know, if we also see the impacts of excessive government intervention in our energy industry, and I want to talk about that for a second. You know, some states that we look at from Oklahoma and we see they're trying to control what car you're supposed to drive, what stove you can use in your home. California just passed a law that by 2035, they're not going to allow combustion engines in their cars. I'm like, how do you get that number? I mean, 2050, no, 2040, 2035, it's all virtue signaling. Let me just tell you right now, it's not going to happen, all right? We will have choice, we will have combustion engines past 2035. But the attack, if you really think about it, the attack of the Biden administration trying to pick winners and losers is raising prices on everyone in the process. Have you guys heard of the Keystone XL pipeline, right? Day one in office, this administration canceled that project. What you probably don't know is Cushing, Oklahoma was going to be the home to that pipeline. Cushing, Oklahoma is where West Texas Intermediate is priced, WTI. And did you know this? There's already 2 pipelines from Canada to Cushing, Oklahoma. The Keystone XL was going to be the 3rd one. And we know that the safest way to move oil and natural gas is by pipeline. But guess what? The big train lobbies, the transportation industry, the people that don't want to lose that revenue start stirring everybody up. And as we all know in this room, politics gets involved. Also, this administration has leased fewer acres for energy development than any other president in history. They halted new LNG exports, okay? That hurts not only the companies in Oklahoma and Pennsylvania and Texas and all over our country, but more importantly, I've met with 60 ambassadors. It hurts our allies. That guess what? Newsflash, they rely on American energy. They have to have a reliable, affordable grid for their citizens. And so what do we do when they can't get it from their friends? We drive them into the arms of our adversaries. Because of these anti-American energy policies, taxpayers are now spending $1.7 trillion in hidden energy costs. That's the cost to the American people. But states like Oklahoma, we do it very well. And I love to brag on our energy story. We're number 6 in oil production. We're number 5 in natural gas production. We're also number 3 in electricity generated by wind. You probably didn't know that about our state. But we have some of the cleanest water, cleanest air in the country, and 47% of our energy comes from renewables. We're one of only 4 states that can say that. So that's one of the reasons Google has their largest data center located in Oklahoma. So we're not afraid of renewables, we love them. We just don't think the government should pick winners and losers, and we explore all forms and all of the above approach in the state of Oklahoma. And thank you. Because of that, right now Oklahoma is being very attractive to manufacturing. We're bringing supply back closer to home. The supply chain is being relocated back to the U.S., so Oklahoma is the spot that everybody's looking at. And we are the number 1 most affordable electricity cost to the industrial consumer, number 2 to the commercial consumer. That's all so important, and I would encourage all of us to have those policies in our state that encourage an all of the above approach. And we all know this in this room, but the biggest driver of inflation we've experienced over the last few years is the rise in energy prices. It really impacts every piece of our economy. Right now, Americans are spending 20% more on everything that we need. Inflation is crushing the middle class. In turn, the federal government continues to expand benefits for more and more people. And it's just becoming a big circle. If you think about it, increasing the debt and making inflation even worse. And now, we don't have enough people talking about it. I encourage you to do some research on this and talk about it. But we are spending 25%. I just saw Elon Musk tweet about this as well. We are spending 25% of our revenue or income on interest only on our national debt. All right, what does that mean? I'll give you an example. So when I graduated from Oklahoma State, go Cowboys. All right, Boomer Sooner, there we go too. I bought my first house in Tulsa. I paid $66,000 for my house. I was dating my wife, Sarah. I was so excited. And I made my first house payment. It was $550. And I looked, and only $49 went towards principal. And I was like, dadgum, only $49? But at least I knew that in 30 years, when I looked at my amortization schedule, that I was gonna own my house at 8th and Harvard, right? We don't pay principal and interest on our national debt. It's interest only. That means we're never gonna pay it off. And it gets worse, because this year, the Biden administration is gonna spend $2 trillion over our income that piles onto that. We right now are already spending more money in interest than we do in our national defense. So states, like all of us in this room, we need to band together and we need to pass a balanced budget amendment. We need 34 states, or Ronald Reagan said you only need 33 states, because if you get 33 states, Congress panics and then they go fix it. So we need 34 states to act to require the federal government to balance the budget and put a constitutional amendment in there. Oklahoma and about 20 other states have passed a trigger law. We need to get to 33 or 34. But I love how Warren Buffett, he says this. He says he can fix the national spending problem in one day. And I agree with him. You wanna know what he says? All we have to do is we need to pass a law that says that no one in Congress can run for re-election if they don't pass a balanced budget. But I wanna make very clear about Oklahoma. Our vision is super clear. We wanna be the most business-friendly state in the entire nation. So what are we doing? We're cutting taxes. We're limiting the growth of government. We're deregulating. We're making businesses welcome to know that we're welcome capital when they come to the state of Oklahoma. And guess what? That helps education and infrastructure and healthcare when we get our economy booming. But at the end of the day, if the government controls your education, if they control your energy and your economy, they're gonna go after our ethics. And it's already happening. They know if they can break apart our families, they can exert even more control over us. We're seeing record levels of fatherlessness across our nation. Today, nearly 18 million children are living without a father in the home. The statistics are painting a grim picture. 71% of those who drop out of high school grew up without a present father. 66% of juveniles in state custody experienced fatherlessness. So in Oklahoma, we're promoting families. We're promoting fathers. We know that the best thing for kids is to have a mom and a dad at home. And we need fathers engaged when they are home. Studies show that the average boy spends only 30 minutes on a one-on-one conversation a week with their dad, and they spend over 40 hours a week in front of a screen. Kids with engaged fathers are 80% or twice as likely to go to college, and they're 80% less likely to spend any time in jail. Our states and our country are desperately in need of fathers who are willing to step up and change the status quo. President Ronald Reagan said it this way: there is no institution more vital to our nation's survival than the American family. Here, the seeds of personal character are planted, the roots of public virtue first nourished. Through love and instruction, discipline, guidance, and example, we learn from our mothers and our fathers these values that will shape our private lives and our public citizenship. And you're all here today because I know you love our country and you believe in public service. We know that there is hope in the American dream, and it is worth us all fighting for. That's why it's so important that we bring common sense solutions back to our education system, to our energy infrastructure, to our economy, and to our communities. The founders of our country envisioned a country where there is no limitation to what one person can achieve. And it's our job to make sure government isn't one of those limitations. Thank you all for what you're doing in your states and for working to keep the American dream alive. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless this United States of America. Thank you.